What's up, my wizards? It's Dev from Mtg. We like magic, and we have got a bunch of Dominaria stuff to go over today. We've got like 7 brand new cards to talk about, and a bunch of stuff got art. So let's go ahead and jump into it. There's so much to discuss. I kind of don't want to waste time. Let's talk. The first I'm going to talk about is all these cards that got art today. We've already talked about all of these when we covered the leaks, and feel free to go back and watch those if you want like a really in-depth opinion on all of these cards. But I am going to give you sort of quick hits on my opinion of all of these and talk a little bit about the artwork. Starting with Mox Amber. Just looking like Mirage artwork to me. It also sort of looks like the necklace from Moana, just amber, kind of. And, I have seen people saying that this is kind of a trash artifact. I don't get it. Already brewing up with Mox Amber. There's like 3 different decks in Standard that this goes in. I really don't see the problem. It will see a great deal of play. There's no way that it doesn't. There's 3 or 4 different things that it goes in. So Mox Amber looks like a hit to me. I don't know how people are missing it. We also saw the art for Jaya Ballard, which is a different art than we expected, actually. A different art had been going around, to begin with at least. But Jaya's still looking cool, but I'm a little less up on this card than I was the first 24 hours after I read it. So let me just put it that way. I still think that she has the potential to be cool. And in the right decks, that second ability is really, really good, as is the first one, obviously. And if you just like +1 her on the first turn she comes into play, then she sort of only costs you 2 mana, which is worth pointing out. And she pays for herself. I mean, 6 loyalty after you +1 her is a lot of loyalty. So as long as you've got a team around her to protect her, Jaya doesn't seem terrible. You can get a couple of turns in with her, but obviously she doesn't protect herself in any meaningful way, and I think that might hurt her too much to see play, at least right now. There's also the fact that Glorybringer's in the format, and if you're going to play a 5-drop in red, probably going to be Glorybringer. So there's also that. I think that hurts a lot. We also saw what Icy Manipulator is going to look like. We knew it was going to be in the set, but here it is. Nothing will ever be as cool to me, I guess, as the Ice Age art. I know it's goofy, but I love it. There's so much going on in the Ice Age art, and there is nothing going on in the art for any other Icy Manipulator. It's like all the other arts are so boring. Ice Age looks so cool, and this adds another tick to the boring side of the arts that Icy has had in its history. Also, check out the art for Night of Malice. This looks super sexy, and obviously it's panoramic. Like, if you put this together with the other knight, the white knight, then they're facing each other, they're, going charging into battle against each other, and that looks really, really cool. And I do like this creature. I don't think it's quite as good, honestly, as the white knight, but it can't be baffling ended. It can't be sealed away. There's some cool stuff. It can't be cast out or Ixalan's Binding or whatever. So, definitely it dodges as much removal, but I don't think the removal it dodges is as good. Let me put it that way, but I still think the card is great. We also saw the art for Demon Lord Belzenlock. I really like this guy, man. The art is just kind of like typical demon, which is sad because, according to flavor text on another card, I'll get to it. Apparently, this guy is responsible for, everything that ever happened in Dominaria, apparently. All the bad stuff that ever happened. Every age, the Ice Age and on, the Dark, all of that. It's all the responsibility of this guy. So this is, the biggest baddie ever, technically. Or at least they're sort of setting him up to be. And, I don't know, the art could have been a little bit cooler. I don't know. He's just a demon. Ooh. But I do think the card is really playable. I touched on this. I talked about this card for ages when I did the Dominaria leak stuff, the coverage of those. But I will say, just again, to sum things up, I think this card is great. This is what I want 6 mana to look like if we're going to play a 6 mana threat in Standard. I know that it's really hard to justify 6 mana threats, but this is about as close as it gets right here, man. 6 mana, 6/6, 2 very relevant keyword abilities, and it replaces itself in your hand. It draws you at least the 1 card, if not multiple cards. And some people are confused about this. It does, in fact, always draw you at least 1 card, the way it's worded. So this is good. This just looks fantastic to me. If I'm going to spend 6 mana on a competitive Standard creature, this is it. We also saw the art for a bunch of sagas, and some of these are sort of hit or miss, like Chainer's Torment. We actually saw this right before I came on camera, and this is one of the worst art for these sagas, and it's also probably the worst saga. If you want my opinion on it, the card does not look too great, so there's that. There's also Mirari Conjecture. We saw that a couple of days ago. Art is kind of meh, card is kind of meh, question mark on the card. There's been a lot of discussion about this. But no, nothing concrete. You know, there's nothing like, oh, this is the knockout punch that we're building the deck for, and, you know, the combo that we want to build around conjecture. I really haven't seen the conversation come to a round conclusion as to what you actually do with this card. In Standard, you know, there's a couple of speculative things that I think is just way too slow. So I don't have high hopes for it, but some Johnny somewhere might be able to make it work. There's also Time of Ice. We saw the art for that. Looks busted in Limited. This looks really good in Limited to me, but bad in Standard. You know. So I don't think it's going to see any play in Constructed formats, but I love the art for this. Bunch of callouts. You see Kildor and Outpost. You see Darien. There's a bunch of stuff going on this card. This is one of my favorite Saga artworks. But definitely my favorite Saga artwork is definitely, I'll say it 100 times, History of Benalia. This thing looks so awesome. The stained glass behind, it's going to look incredible in foil. And honestly, I think this is a good saga. This looks fine to me. About half the sagas look sort of playable, and the other half look like garbage. And this is on the playable end, definitely. You know, 3 mana for 4/4 worth of power and toughness spread among 2 creatures is already decent, and then you get another huge boost in power. The last turn it's in play. That looks great. You can get this started on turn 3, but it's not the worst top deck in the world because it guarantees you gas for a couple of turns. There's a lot that I like about this. Actually, you know, board in a box, that's cool, and at the end of its life cycle, it gives your entire team this huge boost and you can alpha strike. There's so much I like about History. And a couple of days ago, we also saw the art for Triumph of Gerard. I really don't like this as a card. I don't think it's very good at all, but I guess the art's cool. Gerard got a statue. I like Gerard, I guess. I kind of didn't back in the day. I don't know if anybody else played Magic back then. I know a lot of my audience did, actually. I know that, but Gerard was kind of not as well liked when these sets were actually out. When, you know, Visions, Weatherlight, and, you know, the whole Wrath cycle and Tempest. Gerard was like one of the more hated characters on the team. That was at least my and most of my friends' perception. So, like, I mean, it's cool to see Gerard again, but, like, we're sort of looking at it with rose-colored glasses. Oh, Gerard's so awesome. A lot of us did not care for Gerard. Pretty sure that's all the sagas, though, that we got new art for, at least. But in any case, we also saw the art for Wizard's Lightning and Wizard's Retort. These are cards that me and many other people are excited about. Art is cool and all, but I really like the flavor text here. I like the story it tells. I think it's really cool that, like, the first thing a wizard ever learned how to do was throw a lightning bolt. So the second thing a wizard ever learned how to do was counter a lightning bolt. It's just really neat, you know. But aside from the flavor text, the art is just kind of like, hey, it's a lightning bolt. It's a counter spell. Yeah, it's all right. You know, the foils are going to look really good. Outside of that, it looks fine. Looks fine. The cards themselves, though, are really awesome, and we'll see play. Now, we're sort of rounding the corner on the stuff that we saw in the leaks, but we got artwork for in the last couple of days. But one of the coolest things that we got to see was the entire team of the Weatherlight. All of their art got previewed, and it mostly looks really cool. You know, Joyra still in the action, giving me Christina Hendricks, sort of, kind of. I don't know, maybe I'm missing that. It's like Christina Hendricks, Emma Stone, Ginger Spice. All of that is going on in this artwork to me. There's also Squee, looking like Squee, still around, as is that, like, toy of his. He's still got it, which is actually kind of amazing. He might not be able to die, but that he has had that toy for freaking ever when you think about it. So it's just insane that he was able to hold on to it. We also saw the art for Tiana. Wings are going to look really good, shiny. I'll give you that much. But I'm not actually that impressed with the card at large. It looks like it does a lot of stuff, but it's a 5-mana 3/3. It's super easily killed. I don't want my 5-drop to get Lightning Strike. I'm not a big fan of that at all. But if this does get you any sort of card advantage, then it's probably decent. But I don't know, man. 5 mana is so much, and you just think about all the other things you can do for 5 mana in Standard alone, and I don't know how much play the card's going to see. And technically, sort of a member of the Weatherlight crew, we also saw the art for Slimefoot, which I really like. This is another artwork I think is going to look really, really good in foil. I love the color palette that they used on this, and it's sort of kind of exactly how I wanted it to look. So I'm excited about the card, especially if we see more stuff with Saprolinks. I think it's going to be really cool. So I like the card. I like the artwork. That's a win. That's a win. But finally, are you ready for some new cards? We got some, as a matter of fact. And the first one I want to talk about is a card that we actually got a few days ago that I just haven't actually had the chance to talk about yet. I think it's a good segue. Here's Danitha right here. So this is yet another card. I'm going to just go ahead and get this out of the way. That could be good in Cheerios. Yeah, we don't have a Bone Saw and Cathar's Shield. We don't have zero-cost artifact or equipment in the standard format right this second, at least, from what we know. But we can make like one cost equipments free if we have a Danitha out, effectively making them Bone Stars and Cathar Shields and stuff. So that might be relevant for that deck, and this could be relevant too in the Blue-White Auras deck. Obviously, you know, it's definitely a battleship in a box. You know, it comes ready to be assembled because it's got 3 keyword abilities, but it is just completely naked while you're trying to suit it up. That's the interesting turn of phrase. But while you're trying to suit it up, they can do anything to it. This, again, super killable. 2 toughness creature in standard, especially for 3 mana, isn't necessarily where I want to be. You'd be shocked, magma sprayed, and, you know, lightning strike, harness lightning, abrade, all that stuff at a mana advantage to our opponent. It can be revolted or hit by a revolted fatal push, and that's a huge mana advantage for our opponent. So not the biggest fan of that, you know, especially considering this already costs 3 mana, but usually the removal spell is going to come while we're trying to put a piece on it. That's when it's going to get hit. So we'll lose even more mana, and just it feels like a blowout, so you have to be able to protect this while you're trying to put stuff on it. I don't want to tear her down too much. This is a card that I should really like. You know, 3 keyword abilities and a cost reduction ability is right up my alley, but I'm not sure that you want to spend your 3rd turn doing this and just say go, be tapped out. You know, I feel like you're just begging to get shocked at that point. So the time will tell if Danitha is truly good enough for constructed, you know, high-level constructed play, but I think that they pushed the card as much as they possibly could without making it, too good. It's obviously not a broken card. There's a lot of good arguments against it, but look at all of the things it does, guys. Look at all of those things. So it's possible. It's definitely possible. This card is amazing. Now, we saw 3 common black cards today, and one of them is actually really interesting, but I'm going to show you them all at the same time here. Here's Cabal Paladin, here's Cabal Evangel, and I'm going to throw you a curveball. This one's not from the Cabal. It's Caligo's Skin Witch. Caligo's Skin Witch is 2 mana, 1 and a black for a 1/3 human wizard. You can kick it for 3 into black. And if you do kick it, each opponent discards 2 cards when it enters the battlefield. Cabal Evangel has awesome flavor text, and it's just a 2 mana 2/2 human cleric. And Cabal Paladin is 4 mana, 3 and a black for a 4/2 human knight. And whenever you cast a historic spell, Cabal Paladin deals 2 damage to each opponent. Now, even though Skin Witch has a really descriptive and awful, like, terrifying name, and Cabal Evangel exists, I'm gonna just skip past them. You know, I don't care too much about those. Although, again, I will say about Cabal Evangel that now people have to cosplay as Belzenlock, and someone has to follow them around saying the flavor text on this card dressed as this lady. That has to happen at a convention. It has to, and we have to record it and put it on the internet. That is what this card is for. But aside from that, Cabal Paladin looks interesting, and it's super dope. This card is common because it could see some sort of pauper play. Now, the argument against this card is that Reckless Fireweaver already exists and really doesn't see all the play, and is in a way better because it costs, you know, half of what this costs. Obviously, it'll do half the damage too, but Reckless Fireweaver is already in the format, has been forever, and it hasn't forced Cheerios to go into a 3rd color. The deck that people are saying this goes in is Cheerios. That's the thing that I see most often in connection with this card in the day that it's been spoiled. I don't know that it's good enough for Cheerios. Costs an awful lot of mana. Really, really killable. You know, why wouldn't you just play Fireweaver if you're going to add another color? All that applies. But I do think the card is really, really neat in its pauper applications. You know, obviously we don't have a ton of legendaries, and sagas aren't going to work either, but there are all the artifacts in the world. And, you know, if you just had this and maybe Fireweaver too in your, you know, black-red artifacts deck in pauper, I think you could end up doing a butt-ton of damage really fast. So I like the idea of this being a pauper playable card, but as far as the people going out and saying that this is going to make, you know, Cheerios add a 3rd color, I think you're probably not right. Again, I'd be really happy if you prove me wrong, but you're very likely not right. Now, I told you there was another member of the Weatherlight crew, and it turns out there is. Here's Raff Capashen right here, a descendant of Gerard. That's kind of cool. He's 4 mana, 2, a white, and a blue for a 3/3 legendary human wizard with flash and flying somehow, and you may cast historic spells as though they had flash. This is good. This is so good. It doesn't even have to have flying. It just randomly has flying. 3/3 flash flying for 4 mana isn't necessarily the best deal, but it's a pretty decent deal to begin with. I'm not going to sneeze at it. And this ability can lead to some really super stupid crap, especially if you have more mana after you cast them. If you cast them relatively late in the game and you have more mana to cast like legendary dudes at instant speed after you cast this on your opponent's turn, you can do some really, really hilarious stuff. And I think that it gives a blue-white control deck a reason to sort of, play permanents, play creatures. I want to play Gideon in blue-white control. There's a ton of like legendary dudes that I want to play in blue-white control. Teferi I want to play in blue-white control, but the problem is you can't play any of them at instant speed, and you want to play most of your stuff at instant speed in a blue-white control deck. But now, don't necessarily have to worry about that. We just play a couple of copies of this dude, get him out first, and then we just go from there. He can be killed in a variety of ways, but at least he's got flash. We play in at the end of our opponent's turn. We didn't necessarily lose any mana value out of that. We're gonna untap in literally 2 seconds anyway. So when creatures have flash, I feel like they're a lot more playable just for that. Actually, I should be done talking about this, but I'll have to throw this out here real quick. The ability to play sagas at instant speed is actually relevant. It's actually quite relevant. I don't think it's going to be super important in standard or anything, but that does make you look twice at every single saga. Each and every one. And it's going to sort of change the way sagas work, because you'll get 2 hits off of a saga nearly immediately. You'll get the one that you get when it comes into play and gets a lore counter, and then you'll get the one after your draw step. If you were to play a saga at the end of your opponent's turn, you'd essentially get 2 parts of that saga almost immediately. And you can play the black saga that wraths everything when you get the second lore counter. Playing that at the end of your opponent's turn is decimating. It essentially negates the fact that you normally have to wait a turn for your board wipe. So I do think that could end up being relevant. And obviously playing artifacts at instant speed is crazy. Imagine playing like Paradox Engine or Panharmonicon at instant speed and doing crazy stuff. I mean, I know that that's Christmas land, blah, blah, blah. But just the possibilities that arise from being able to play stuff at instant speed is really important. Not only is this instant speed, but it gives the ability to play almost every card in your deck instant speed. That's crazy. That's crazy. You can surprise your opponent during combat by doing really ridiculous crap, and then you can do stuff at the end of your opponent's turn. You don't ever have to do anything on your turn ever, which is also typically very powerful. So I am in love with this card a lot. But next up, and next to last actually, we're almost done with this one, is a card that as soon as I saw it, I got them nostalgic feels. Little kind of, your eyes start going like, oh god. Like your eyes starts twitching and your chest swells because you're like, oh my god, it's here. But anyway, we're finally going to look at the Weatherlight. It's not actually called the Weatherlight, and it probably should be. It's just called Weatherlight. I don't know, it sort of bugs me, but still, look at it. Look at her, sailing again in the sky. She looks good. But in any case, she's 4 mana, 4/5 vehicle with flying, obviously. And whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal a historic card from among them and put it into your hand, put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order, and you can crew this for 3. Now, one cute piece of flavor is that any member of the Weatherlight crew, save for Squee or Slimefoot, can crew this. They did that. That's neat. Like, Jorah didn't have to have 3 power, but basically any main member of the crew can crew a Weatherlight. That's cool. But I actually might end up bursting some bubbles here. I think the card's okay. But as far as competitive level standard, I'm not 100% sure it makes it right now. I think the best argument in the current standard for this is that it blocks both, Glorybringer and Rekindling Phoenix without dying. But Aethersphere Harvester already does that and is way easier to crew and keeps us in the game against aggro. It's just it's a cheaper card. I think it's probably better in a lot of ways. So I'm not sure how I feel about Weatherlight. I do think that, the hit for combat damage ability is disgusting, but you have to hit for combat damage. I really would have liked if it was just when it attacks, you get to do that. I think that it would have had a chance in standard, but as it sits, I'm just not 100% sure that this is exactly where it needs to be. It plays well sort of with and against Heart of Kirin, so there's that. Obviously, you'll get hit by Heart of Kieran at least once before you can even play this. But once you do get this out, this will block and kill a heart. So there's that. And obviously, it'll help find you a Heart of Kieran if you want it to. So all of that seems cool. It helps you find combo pieces so long as you can get through for combat damage. Really helps that it's evasive, but getting through with a flying creature, even a flying creature, on turn, 5 or 6 is actually a little tougher in this format than it might seem, So I don't know, guys. I don't know. It will, if it swings through, it will eat Glorybringer. It will eat, Heart of Kieran. So it'll eat Rekindling Phoenix. Phoenix will come back, but still. It does barrel over an awful lot of stuff. So there are things I do like about it, but if we're spending 4 mana in this format, I think there's probably just better things that we can do. Like, just in this set, I think Karn is probably a better way to spend 4 mana than Weatherlight is. And I'm not lamenting it. I'm not saying, oh my god, I wish this card was better. This is terrible. I do think there's some good things about it. And I think at the end of the day, it could see some amount of play. Possibly, because it's going to be in standard for a while. So after rotation especially, it might be able to see some amount of play. So I'm not discounting the card that much, but I do think that it's probably not as good as a lot of people think it is at present. But here's a card I really like. This is Board the Weatherlight. This is 2 mana, 1 and a white for a sorcery. And it just does what happens when you get through for combat damage with the Weatherlight. It's look at the top 5 cards of your library, reveal a historic card, put it into your hand. The rest go on the bottom of your library in a random order. I'll also admit that the flavor text on this one got me a little bit, and it shouldn't. It's kind of stupid flavor text. The first time I read it, I was like, oh, that's good. That's pretty good. So there's that. But I will, my one gripe is that the art looks slightly off to me. The art looks a little, I don't quite know. Like, I see what's going on, but the proportions look weird. Where the tail is looks weird to me. Something's, like, where the bow of the ship is kind of turning. I don't know. The art looks weird, but the card itself, which is what we usually talk about on this channel, looks very, very good to me. This is white card selection that digs 5 cards. That's so much. This is something else that Cheerios might like. They already play Glintless Crane. And Glintless Crane at least give you a body. I think it's more important to have a body when all is said and done. But it doesn't dig as far as this does. This is really good for combo decks. And the most important thing is it's in white. White doesn't usually get this kind of thing. So I really like it, but I do think it's balanced. Like, I don't think it's going to see any modern play unless there's a very specific combo deck that wants to play this and doesn't already play more effective sort of blue card draw. Or tutors of some kind. I think that there are decks that want this, that don't have access to better options, but 2 mana to dig 5 cards and grab, the best of a pretty good lot. Historic includes 3 different card types. So you've got a pretty good spread of options there, depending on what you're trying to do for your deck. I like a lot about this. I like a lot about this, and my favorite thing about it is that it's in a color that almost never gets this kind of effect, and that could be really important. But I'm pretty sure that we are caught up. We are caught up, ladies and gentlemen. I will be back as the week goes on. There's going to be spoilers all week. It's officially on, you guys. And Wednesday, mark your calendars. That'll be very likely tomorrow. I'm likely to upload this video super, super late. Well, really super late on Monday night, very early Tuesday morning. The video comes out at 5 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday. I wouldn't be surprised. But anyway, Wednesday, mark your calendar. That's when my exclusive previews are coming out. I have 3 different cards this season, and we didn't see any of them in the leaks. So make sure you're tuned into the channel on Wednesday. We'll go over those, plus all the other spoilers that happened that day. So be with me, sub if you're new, do all that stuff, like the video, make sure you hit the bell for the notifications when you do subscribe. Follow me on Twitter at SBMTGDev. Throw me $1 a month on Patreon if you can afford it. And also, check out TCG Player's website. You can already pre-order most of these cards, like anything that we saw in the leak that we got the new art for in the last couple of days. You can pre-order every single one of those cards right now on TCG Player for the best price on the internet. But even if you don't want to order anything right now, they're a great price guide. So check them out if you got the time, you got the effort. Things like Inquest and Beckett Magazine don't really exist. Maybe Beckett does, but Inquest Magazine doesn't exist. We don't have a price guide for Magic anymore. TCG Player serves that function pretty well. So click the link in your description if you're sort of interested to see what the prices are doing in the set so far. But I'm pretty sure I'm tapped out for now. Do all the stuff. Help me out. Like the video, sub, blah, blah, blah. And I will catch you cats later. I'm Dev from the place. Thanks for watching, my wizards. The most important thing, spread love and be kind.